we will start in our Savasana. Set your intentions for the practice. Focus on what you want to bring into your life and what you are needing to let go of in order to create the space to allow that change and shift to occur. Relax into the Savasana while setting your intentions. Continue in your corpse pose while intentionally allowing yourself to let go of all of your worries and all of your concerns. Let go of your stress from today, from the week, the month, and the whole entire year. Give yourself permission to be stress-free. And then slowly rotate your head and neck to the right. Deep breath. Then back to neutral. And then to the left side for another deep breath. And then back to neutral. And then we're going to stretch out long, reaching hands overhead, pointing toes, rotating your ankles, flexing your heels, and then hug in your right knee. And you can engage that foot, flexing the heel, rotating the ankle, pointing your toes. Continue hugging that knee and pay close attention to the micro movements and the compression in your right hip socket. And then you're going to want to reach for your canvas strap. Set it to go across the ball of your right foot before then straightening out the leg. Maybe keeping the knee slightly bent if you wish. Keeping some softness in the back of your knee. Holding that leg straight up. You might want to pull the leg just slightly closer to your chest. And then we're going to swing the leg out to the right. Continuing to hold the strap in this half straddle. Breathe into it. This is a big stretch. Hold there for a couple of deep breaths. And then as you release, you can set your strap aside, lowering that right leg back down to the mat. Hands both overhead, stretching out long again, pointing those toes, rotating the ankles, and then hugging in your left knee. Again, you can engage the foot and the ankle, flexing and pointing your toes, rotating your foot. Continue hugging your left knee in tightly. Again, pay close attention to the micro movements, focusing on the compression in your left hip socket. And then pick up your strap, placing the canvas across the ball of your left foot, straightening out that leg, holding it there. Again, you can keep your knee slightly bent, keep some softness in the knee is usually ideal. You don't want to hyperextend. And then you might want to pull that leg just a little closer to your chest before then swinging the left leg out to the left side with the strap still in your hand and still across the ball of your foot for the half straddle on the other side. Again, this is a really big stretch. Breathe into it. And then you can set your strap aside again while lowering that leg back down to the mat. Both legs are out straight, stretching out long, arms up overhead, and then hugging both knees tightly. Try to touch your forehead to your knees if you can. Continue to hold your right knee while lowering your left leg back down to the mat. We're going to hold there for several breaths, letting go of any stress, any tension. And then we're going to place the right knee onto the floor on the left side, or you might want to bolster or a block, a pillow. Getting into the supine twist. Your arms are in a T. Stay in the supine twist, keeping your drishti over your right fingertips. You have an option to use your left hand to apply light pressure to your right knee at any time if you wish. Enjoy this stretch. Focus on the release in the small of your back. And then slowly turn your head and neck to be looking in the opposite direction over your left shoulder. Hold there for 2 full breaths. And then slowly turn the head and neck back to looking out over the right fingertips, keeping the gaze over your right shoulder and right arm. And then you can rotate your head and neck back to neutral, lowering that right leg back down to the floor. Hug in both of your knees together. Head and neck towards the knees again, rocking and rolling. And then lower your right leg to the floor while continuing to hug your left knee, and hold that for several breaths. Then you're going to move that left knee across your body to place it onto the floor on your right side, or on a bolster, on a prop, a pillow, or a block. For the supine twist for the other side, your arms are in a T again. Enjoy this release while keeping your gaze out over your left fingertips. And with your right hand, you can apply that light pressure to the left knee at any point if you wish. Just relax into this twist. And then slowly turn your head and neck towards the right, looking out over the right fingertips. And we're going to hold there for a couple of breaths. Slowly moving your head and neck back to be looking out over your left shoulder and arm and fingertips. And then back to neutral. Lowering that left leg back down to the mat, coming out of this twist. Stretch your arms out long overhead. And then hug both knees once again, stretching your neck. You might want to rotate your ankles, pointing your toes, flexing your heels. And we're going to get into the reclined butterfly. You might want to utilize props under your knees or thighs. Your arms are down by your sides, hands, palms facing up. Surrender to your practice. Then you're going to glide your arms across the floor, reaching out wide to the sides, creating an arch of a half moon overhead, getting your hands into steeple grip. Holding that there. Then glide your arms back down across the floor, out to the sides, and down with your hands or palms facing up again. And then slowly stretching those arms out wide once again in that half moon as you bring them up overhead into the arch, touching the fingertips to each other in steeple grip or prayer hands. We're going to remain in reclined butterfly. And if you have any props, you want to probably remove them at this point. We're going to get into reclined tree pose. First, straighten out your left leg while placing the sole of your right foot against the inseam of your left thigh as high as you can. Your arms and hands are still overhead in the steeple grip, prayer hands, or yogi's choice, whatever's most comfortable for you. You can branch your arms out. You can goal post. Continue to hold here. And then we're going to switch the sides by first straightening out your right leg and then placing the sole of your left foot high to the inseam of your right thigh. Your arms can still remain stretched overhead, branching your arms out, prayer hands, steeple grip, however you're most comfortable, yogi's choice. And then reach for your strap and get the canvas to go across the balls of both of your feet for legs up the wall. Your knees can be straightened or bent slightly. It's always good to keep that softening in the back of your knees. You want to be careful not to hyperextend. You can pedal out your knees, you can rock, you can wiggle, anything you wish. Walking them out, remaining still. And then continue to keep your left foot in the strap with the canvas on the ball of the foot, and you can remove your right foot, placing the ankle across your left thigh for reclined pigeon. Holding that there, you might want to bend your knee slightly a little more. That's optional, whatever's most comfortable for you. Maybe straightening, maybe bending, maybe a little bit of both. And then we're going to switch out the feet. Get your right foot back into that strap and remove your left foot, placing the left ankle across the right thigh for the reclining pigeon on the other side. Enjoy this stretch. And again, you have that option to bend your knee slightly, keeping it straightened, or a little bit of both. And then we're going to lay flat for 3 honey bumblebee breaths. Set your strap aside, placing your 3 fingers over your closed eyes, your ring finger, your middle finger, your index finger, thumbs. Press your ear cartilage, closing off the airway to your ears. We're going to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, humming low pitch 3 times on the exhale. After that, get ready to turn yourself over. You can slowly turn yourself to the left or the right, and then carefully turn yourself all the way over to lay prone onto your front side. You can rest your head on your hands, laying them on top of each other. We'll take several breaths while we prepare for another twist. Come up onto your elbows and forearms into Sphinx. And then hike up your right knee out to your right side with your right arm straight out in front of you. With your left arm, you can thread the needle under your right armpit. Make any adjustments for this pose that you need to as you get into the supine twist once again. You might want to use a bolster or a prop, a pillow, or a block to support your knee again. You can try to straighten out both of your arms flat on the floor. Try to lay your shoulders flat on the ground with the arms in a T. At any point, you can use your left hand again to apply that slight pressure to the right knee. Keeping your gaze over your right shoulder, looking out towards your right fingertips. Feel the difference from the last supine twist, having gotten into this pose from an entirely different series of prompts and directives. Also, you may take notice of any similarities along with those differences. And when you're ready to come out of this twist, set your bolster aside if you have one. And again, you can rest your head on your hands, laying them atop of one another. Take several breaths. And then we'll bend the knees, lifting the feet into the air and windshield wipering the feet and the calves back and forth. Then slow down that movement before you lower your feet back down to the mat. Coming back up onto your forearms and elbows and hands into the Sphinx pose again. This time we're gonna hike up the left knee out to the left side. And with your left arm straight out in front of you, you can thread your right arm through that needle, that space between your left arm and the floor. Shifting yourself into that supine twist again, same as the other side. You can adjust yourself so that both shoulders and arms are flat on the ground in a T again. And you might want the bolster or a pillow or a block. Again, you have that option to apply a light pressure with your right hand onto your left knee, keeping your drishti out over your left shoulder. As you relax into this supine twist again, take notice of the similarities and difference from the first supine twist, and even just from the other side. Just relaxing into it. And then as you unwind, rest your head on your hands again, stacking them on top of one another one more time. And here in an exaggerated motion, we're really going to windshield wiper the feet and the knees, really loosening the hips out this time. And then slowing that down, lowering the feet back down to the ground. And then send your hips back towards your feet, getting into a wide knee child pose, sitting on your feet. You can use a block, a bolster, or a pillow to rest your head or your torso on. We're going to hold this position, really relaxing the torso. Ragdolling that upper portion of your body, allowing gravity to do the work for you. Lean into it. And as you're done, remove the prop if you have one. Coming up into a tabletop shape briefly, before then lowering yourself back down into the Sphinx. On your elbows and forearms again. This time spreading your hands and your fingers out as wide as you can. Holding that Sphinx pose tall. Before then turning your right forearm to be parallel with the top of the mat. Reach back with your left hand for your left foot. Holding yourself in this half bow pose for several breaths. And then you can take a minute here to attempt the full bow if it's in your practice. Getting each of your feet into each of your hands. You may want to use the strap to give yourself an assist with that. It's very challenging. If you have someone handy, you might want to ask them to spot you. Whatever it takes. If you're able to do it, great. And if you're not able to do it, don't sweat it. Just make any modification that feels right for yourself. If you're in this full bow shape, you might want to remain still. You might want to rock back and forth as you breathe, using your diaphragm to help you just rock lightly. And then as you let go of your feet, rest your head on your hands again with one hand on top of the other. And again, windshield wipering your feet, really loosening the hips out again. And then as we slow it down, lower the feet back down to the floor. And the same thing on the other side. We'll come back into Sphinx, stretching the hands, the fingers out as wide as you can. Sitting up tall. And then turning that left forearm to be parallel to the top of the mat. Reaching back with your right hand for your right foot. Engaging in the half bow for several breaths. And then just like on the other side, you can attempt the full bow if it's in your practice. You can use your strap to help get your feet into your hands. Have someone spot you. Whatever it is that you need to do to support yourself in this challenge of full bow. And if you can't do it, really don't sweat it. You can make any modification that works for yourself. Some days I can do this and some days I can't. It's funny. Our flexibility really changes on a day-to-day basis. Again, you can use your breath and your diaphragm to rock yourself lightly back and forth. Or you can try to remain still, or some of each. And then when letting go of your feet, lower them back down to the mat. And again, send your hips back to sit on your feet in child's pose. This time in a regular child's pose with your knees touching. And while sitting on your feet, you can rest your head on a block again, or pillow, whatever prop you like. We're going to be here for a prolonged period. Take several deep breaths. Relax into it. Again, really ragdolling your torso. Leaning into it. Allowing gravity to work its magic. And then we're going to slide hands or walk your fingers over to the right edge of your mat, reaching for the upper right corner. Feel that stretch across your lower left ribs. And then slide your hands or walk your fingers back to neutral. Before then sliding or walking your hands and fingers towards the left edge of the mat. Reaching for the upper left corner. Focusing on the extension in the lower right ribs. And then gliding or walking your hands and fingers back to neutral. Really relax into this child's pose. Ragdolling that torso. Before then transitioning by slowly pushing your torso up, pressing your hands onto the mat, coming up into hero's pose. We're going to pause there. You might want to place a block or a pillow or a bolster under your rear end. You can place your hands on your thighs. Just remain still. Take notice of the challenges of this seemingly easy pose. And then you can get your prayer hands over heart, slowly rising the prayer hands up overhead, and then lowering them back down before placing your hands back onto your thighs. And then coming up onto your knees into a widened stance. You can stretch your arms up and then reaching out to the sides and behind yourself, sort of like a butterfly wing. And then grabbing your hands behind yourself, interlacing your fingers, flexing your hands, turning them inside out, sorta. And then you can raise your arms up slightly behind yourself as high as you can, maybe leaning back slightly, just feeling the stretch. And you might want to also bend forward, get your forehead onto the floor, allowing your arms to fall over yourself, reaching, pushing your hands towards the floor overhead. And then coming back up carefully before we get ready to move into a camel pose. You can unclasp your hands and shake out your arms and your wrists. I like to get a bolster or blocks for the camel pose, and then leaning back slightly, arching your torso. Again, you can do your arms up and out like wings if you wish. And I usually have a bolster across my calves or ankles, and then I reach for it with my hands to really open up the chest. And then coming out of this shape, you can sit back on your feet into the hero's pose once again, focusing on your breath for a moment. And then when you're ready, you can transition to getting your legs out around in front of yourself. You can swing your legs around, getting yourself into staff pose. You can use a strap on your feet here for the same effect. Personally, I like to stack up some pillows on top of a bolster to just lay across the top of my legs. And just ragdolling the upper body while holding my feet, holding my toes. Just resting the torso onto the pillows. Or like I said, alternatively, you can use the strap on the balls of your feet for the same effect. Or you don't really need to use either pillows or the strap. You can just do this freely if you'd rather. However, we are going to be in this position for an extended period. That's why I like the pillows. Really lean into it. Envision tilting your hips towards your feet, towards your toes. Again, allowing gravity to do the work for you. Focusing on easing your weight forward. Trusting the gravitational pull to completely support you and keep you safe. And then when we're done, we'll remove the props, set them aside. Get the left leg stretched out long, bringing the right foot up high to the inseam of your left thigh, reaching for your left toes and a side bend, breathing into this stretch. Focus on just relaxing into it, trusting gravity. And then as you come up to neutral, we'll switch the legs out and get into a straddle stretch before then getting your left foot into the groin of your right thigh with your right leg stretched out long. And leaning over the right foot for another side bend. Focusing on your breath. And again, trusting gravity to support you and work its magic. Then as we come back up to neutral, you can stretch out both legs into a wide straddle. Leaning forward, reaching out in front of yourself. You might want to rest your forearms or forehead onto a block or two stacked on top of each other. Focus on leaning your weight forward. If you have your head on a block, really allow the weight of your head to be fully supported by that block. Relaxing into your breath. And then as we come up, remove the blocks. We're going to get into a seated butterfly. Holding the soles of your feet together with both hands. Allowing your knees to go towards the floor. Sitting up tall. And then slowly bending your head and neck towards the floor, towards your feet, before gently rising your head up slowly, imagining a string from above the top of your head, pulling it straight up in a perfect posture. And then twisting your head from side to side, first to the right, looking over your right shoulder, and then back to neutral, and then to the left, looking out over your left shoulder, and then back to neutral. And now you can stretch your neck down. You can roll it out in small movements at first. You can twist your head, turning it back and forth like you're indicating a no. You can stretch your neck muscles out diagonally, bending your head from side to side. If you want, you can move your head up and down as if you're indicating a yes. If it's in your practice, you can do a full circle rotation in one direction and then a full circle rotation to the other direction. And then bring your head up to neutral. And we'll shift into the easy pose. Touching down to the ground with your left fingertips, drop your right ear to your right shoulder. You have an option here to use a light pressure with your right fingertips on top of your skull. If you want, you can move your head slightly back and forth to gently massage out your neck muscles. And then head and neck back to neutral. Reaching with your right hand towards the ground, your right fingers towards the mat, while dropping your left ear to your left shoulder. And again, with that slight pressure with the left fingertips, you can move your head and neck slightly back and forth, giving yourself a nice little neck massage, and then allowing the head and neck to go back to neutral. Again, turn the head slowly from side to side, gently to the right. Hold. And then back to neutral. Slowly to the left. Pausing. And then back to neutral. Now we're going to bring ourselves into the wide straddle again, leaning forward. You might want to use the blocks in front of yourself again to rest your forehead on. We're going to remain in this stretch for an extended period. Focusing on your breath, filling up your lungs like they're balloons, and then deflating them, emptying out your lungs. And then refilling them again with fresh air, appreciating the oxygen traveling into your bloodstream to reach all of your muscles as you relax into this stretch. And then you can pick up a block into each of your hands if you wish. Reach over your left foot. If you have blocks, you might want to place them on either side of the foot. You can either rest your hands on those blocks or reach for your toes. Again, allowing gravity here to assist you in your efforts, making this side stretch as easy as possible. Don't fight the gravity. And then you can pick up those blocks, place them out in front of yourself, leaning forward momentarily, before then picking them back up to place them on either side of the right foot. And again, you can reach for your toes here, or you can rest your hands on the blocks. Breathing deep and allowing gravity to work its magic. Letting go of all of your stress. And then coming back to neutral. you can set your blocks aside. Our next pose will be bending our right knee over our left leg, extended out straight. Twisting to the right, gazing towards the back of the room. Right hand or fist is on the floor behind yourself. Your arm is supporting your torso. Using your left elbow to leverage on the right knee. And resting your drishti as far back as you can on that back wall. And then slowly turn your head and your neck to be gazing towards the front of the room. And then slowly again returning your head and your gaze to be looking towards the back of the room, all while continuing to leverage that left elbow on the right knee. And then as we come out of this twist, we're simply going to switch sides. Bend the left knee over the right leg. The right leg is extended out long. Your left hand or fist goes onto the floor behind you, gazing over your left shoulder towards the back of the room, leveraging with your right arm against the left knee. And then slowly turning your head and neck to then be gazing over your right shoulder towards the front of the room. And slowly moving your head and neck to return your drishti to be looking towards the back of the room over your left shoulder again. Continuing to leverage that right elbow on the left knee. And then back to neutral. Coming out of this, we will get into the butterfly pose once more, holding the soles of your feet together, pressing the knees towards the floor, sitting up tall, and again, slowly and carefully bending your head and neck towards your feet, towards the floor as far as you can, before rising your head up and again imagining that string being pulled from above, connecting to the top of your head. And then gently turning your head to the right, and then slowly back to neutral, and then turning carefully to the left, and then back to neutral. And now we will get our legs into cow face, and then Lord of the Fish. First, we're going to bend the right knee over the left knee that's also bent, stacking them on top of one another for cow face. Holding each of your feet in each of your hands. Sitting up tall. You can use your thumbs to press into the arches of your feet, giving yourself a nice, gentle foot massage if you like. And then we're going to turn all the way to the right. Right arm is extended behind you. Left elbow leverages against that right knee. Looking towards the back of the room. Appreciate the power of this twist. And then turn your head slowly to the opposite side to be looking out over your left shoulder. And then carefully turning your head and neck back again to be looking out over your right shoulder. And then allowing your head and neck to go back to neutral. And coming out of this, we'll straighten both legs out in front of ourselves for staff pose. Reaching the arms out wide to the sides and then arching them into that half moon, reaching up towards the sky. You can interlace your fingers to bind your hands and turning your palms outward, reaching up as tall as you can before then bending forward slowly, reaching for your toes, noticing any tightness in your back and allowing that to loosen. And then coming back to sit up into neutral. And then preparing to switch the legs for cow face on the other side. Your left bent knee goes over your right bent knee, stacking them on top of one another. Sitting up tall and holding your feet with each of your hands. You have that opportunity to massage into the arches of each foot with your thumbs if you wish. Before then, twisting to the left, right arm leveraging against the left knee, looking over the left shoulder to the back of the room, and then slowly turning your head and neck towards the front of the room to be gazing over your right shoulder, and then slowly turning your head and neck back to return your gaze over your left shoulder towards the back of the room once again. And then your head and neck back to neutral. As we come out of this twist, we'll return to the staff pose, reaching the arms out wide again, legs are out front, making that half moon arch and touching the palms of your hands overhead, this time in a steeple grip, reaching tall, and then slowly bending forward to hold onto your toes. Notice if you have any more tension in your back or less tension in your back than you did when you did this just a moment ago. And then as you come up to neutral, transition yourself into easy pose, reaching your arms out wide to the sides, and then reaching up for half moon arch, touching the palms of your hands together briefly for prayer hands, before then getting into cactus arms, and then eagle arms with your right elbow over the left elbow, hands together, pushing your elbows up slightly, bending the head and neck down slightly. You have an option to stay in this nice simple stretch, or you can slowly look up, leaning your head and neck back slightly while pushing your eagle arms towards the ceiling. If you do, your arms will unpretzel naturally as you're reaching up. And then you can reach back out wide, touching your hands down to the ground, or if you were just in the eagle arms, you can reach your arms out wide before touching hands down to the ground, before then reaching up into another half moon to touch hands together again overhead for prayer hands, and then back to cactus. And then eagle arms again, this time with the left elbow over the right elbow. And again, pushing those elbows slightly up, bending the head and neck slightly down. And again, you can remain in this nice simple pose for a prolonged period, or you have an option to transition looking up as high as possible, leaning your head slightly back as you push your elbows and arms up towards the ceiling. If you do, they will unpretzel as you're reaching up. And if you're just reaching your arms out wide from that eagle arms, either way, you can then touch the ground before then reaching back out wide and up into the half moon arch again, bringing them overhead once more into that steeple grip, sitting tall. And then we're going to do a simple twist to each side. As you lower your arms down, you can get your right hand behind yourself, your left hand on your right knee, and then lift your right arm straight up high into the air, crossing over your left arm and reaching the left knee with your right hand. And then your left hand can go onto the floor behind yourself before then lifting that left arm straight up high, crossing it over your right arm to hold that right knee before then coming back to neutral. Here you can hug your knees lightly in this basket shape. And then you have an opportunity here to get into a boat pose. I like to first hold my hands under my thighs for a very intense, strong kind of a boat pose. Kind of a variation on a boat pose. I like to do that for a minute before I then get into a more traditional boat pose, holding the arms parallel to the ground. And then you can remain in that boat pose if you wish, or I usually like to scissor my legs for a few minutes with my toes pointed and lowering my feet towards the ground and then raising them up again as I'm scissoring with the toes pointed, and then maybe with the arches stretched out, and then maybe back to toes pointed, continuing to scissor before then eventually laying down flat on the back, stretching out long, and then planting both feet on the floor, knees bent. You might want to hold a block or a pillow in between your knees, possibly another on each side of yourself. Here, you're going to just allow your knees to fall to the right. Arms are in a T. We're going to hold this stretch, focusing your drishti out over your left fingertips. Just a lovely, simple stretch. Sometimes the simplest ones are the best ones. And then slowly you can rotate your head to look out the other direction over your right shoulder. And then back again, looking out over your left shoulder. And then getting your head and neck back to neutral, bringing knees to neutral. And then allow your knees to simply fall to the left with your arms still in a T, and gazing out over your right fingertips again. And then after several breaths, you can slowly turn your head to look out over your left shoulder, setting your gaze out over the left fingertips, and then slowly rotating your head to be looking back over the right shoulder. And then slowly back to neutral. And then knees back to neutral. Remove any props you might be using. You can hug in both knees, bending your head and neck towards the knees. You can point your toes, flex your heels, rotate your ankles. And then we're going to plant both feet firmly on the mat again. And raise your right leg, kicking your knee straight up high and crossing your right knee over your left knee. Before then allowing your legs to simply fall to the right. Arms are still in a T, gazing out over your left fingertips. Holding here for several breaths. This is my all-time favorite of all the twists. The grand finale of this practice. And then you can uncross your knees, bringing them up to neutral, hugging your knees to your chest, rocking and rolling, before firmly planting both feet back onto the mat again for the other side, kicking your left leg straight up into the air to then cross your left knee over your right bent knee, and allowing your legs to simply fall to the left with your arms in that T and your gaze out over your right fingertips. Enjoy this final twist. Then release your knees back up to neutral. Hug in both knees again. One more time, rocking and rolling. And then if you would like to, you have an opportunity here to do the happy baby. You can rock the baby, maybe alternating, straightening, and slightly bending each knee. And then as you come out of that form, you can lay flat. And then reach for a block for supported bridge. Planting both feet firmly on the mat. Lift the hips upward, sliding a block under the small of your back on its lowest level. Lowering your tailbone down onto the block and just relaxing into your supported bridge. And then while you're still on that block, you can reach for your strap, or you can do this without the strap. Going to do legs up the wall. You're welcome to use an actual wall if you have one handy. If you're using the strap, get the canvas to go across the balls of both of your feet. And we'll get into the legs up the wall. And again, you can pedal out your knees, you can walk it out, you can slightly bend and straighten each of your legs. And then when you're done, set the strap aside, remove the block. If it's in your practice, there's an opportunity here for the shoulder stand and the plow. You can take a minute or two to do these, or yogi's choice, any stretch you like, or feel free to get into Savasana early and we can meet you there. Should you be doing a shoulder stand, you might want to point your toes tall. You might want to scissor your legs long, or any movements that you're inclined to do before then transitioning into the plow. And then as you come out of the plow, you can try to tuck your chin and roll down one vertebrae at a time as slow as you can. It's hard to slow yourself down. Before then relaxing onto the mat into the Savasana. Remembering those intentions that you set at the beginning of this practice. Thank yourself for taking the time out of your day to focus on yourself and your well-being. Sorry about that. Dropped my water bottle. You might want to think about small things you can do to work towards the intentions that you've set for yourself, what you'd like to increase in your life and what you'd like to decrease in your life. What little activities can you do? What small behaviors can you change today in order to do that? Or how can you change your thought process in order to do that? Maybe the things that you say, the things that you think, your behaviors. Just relaxing into your Savasana. You don't really have to do anything at all. Tabla rasa. Just clear your mind, blank slate. Then as you bring your awareness back into the room and back into your body, you can roll to one side or the other to rest on your side. eventually we'll be pushing ourselves up. Or if it's in your practice and it's comfortable for you, you have an option to slightly, with your chin tucked, come up onto your elbows with your arms behind yourself, slightly rocking yourself and straightening your arms out behind you to transition into the easy pose. Or if you're pushing yourself up from your side, this is where we will meet you in the easy pose. I like to use a block behind myself for this one as I place my left hand on the right knee, right hand on the floor or on a block behind myself, lightly twisting to the right, and then lifting that right arm up high, straight overhead, crossing over the left arm, and then the right hand onto that left knee, and then reaching the left hand behind myself for the light twist to the left, and then lifting that left arm up high, crossing it over the right arm, and holding the right knee before then coming back into that basket shape and lightly hugging yourself there. Before then hugging your knees in as tightly as you can, making yourself into as small of a seedling or ball, as small as you are able to, constricting yourself to take up as little space as possible. Before then releasing, stretching your arms out wide to the sides into a star shape, and then placing each hand on each of your knees, touching the pointer fingers to the thumbs, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. We will chant Om 3 times in a low pitch on the exhale. And then stretching those arms out wide again for another half moon arch. Bringing the arms up overhead to prayer hands. And then to acknowledge your insight and wisdom, touch your thumbs or knuckles to your third eye on the way to hands to heart. Then reaching those arms out wide once more for one last half moon arch. Prayer hands overhead. And then slowly lowering the prayer hands to hands over heart, to then bow to close and seal today's practice. And so it is. Thank you for this practice today. Be well and enjoy a very blessed rest of your day. And make sure you drink your water. Love and light.